Scott Muir. Wow, gosh, this is so cool. This is so humbling. Hey, my name's Scott Muir. A lot of you guys I know and a lot of you guys I don't know, so thank you all for being here today. Yeah, I'm a local guy here from Southern California. I'm a husband to Kristen, a father to Quinn and Willem right here, a son to Allison, and my brother Tyler is here as well. I'm a surfer, I'm a paddler, I'm an active outdoorsman, and I guess least of all I'd say is I'm actually a quadriplegic, a walking quadriplegic. But this story that I kind of want to tell today is the story of sports in my life and how they've changed my life and how sports have uniquely prepared me to deal with what was the most traumatic and jarring event of my life, and just kind of get back to the roots of sports being character building and sports being preparing us for the future and things that are yet to come. So to do that, I kind of want to go through things and just like lay a little bit of the background and groundwork of who I am, my life, the things I've been through, and then kind of get into the event that happened to me, and then the recovery process, and tie it all together from there. So, like I said, we got my family here. I'm local from Rancho Santa Margarita. I went to Trabuco Hills High School out there. Fell in love with soccer and surfing from a really young age, and found out that soccer was kind of my thing. So I pursued that for a long time. Played a bunch of different positions, found out that striker was kind of the thing for me, and wound up doing well in high school, was an all-CIF soccer player, and then got recruited to a bunch of colleges. I wound up going to the Air Force Academy. I knew I wanted to fly airplanes, I knew I wanted to play D1 soccer, so that was kind of a no-brainer for me. So the Air Force Academy made sense, so there it was, I went over there. And I showed up there thinking I was kind of going to be the big dog on the soccer team, and showed up with a little maybe confidence. And my first year there, I played my freshman year a bit, and at the end of the year, they're kind of downsizing the team a little bit, and the coach said, "Hey Scott, it's been nice having you, but no thanks, we don't need you here anymore." And that was probably the first big blow in my life, and my first real taste of proper failure in my life. I'd never really known that before. And that moment really shaped me. I told him, I said, "Hey, I love playing soccer, and this is what I want to do with my life. Can I stay on?" And he said, "Well, maybe we'll give you another shot next year, but we don't need you, so no thanks." And so me and my friend Todd, who was also cut, we doubled down that summer, and I spent that summer working my butt off. I did everything I could, whether it was sprints, whether it was distance, whether it was skills work, whether it was film. I came back dedicated to be the best soccer player I could be, and I put in that hard work because I knew what goal I had in mind, and I knew how I wanted to get there. And come next season, showed up my sophomore year, and I tried out again and got to stay on the team. It's probably due to a poor recruiting year that year. But be that as it may, I got to stay on the team, which was a huge privilege. And it was a lesson in hard work. And from there, things progressed. I got playing time my sophomore year. I got a lot of playing time my junior year. At the end of the year, on my junior year, I got the Most Improved Award, which is usually the You Sucked the Worst Last Year award. Which was great. It was good to win. And then my senior year from there, I just had a great year, and all that hard work I dedicated to being the best player I could in practices every day, pushing my team. And we ended up with a great season as a team. I ended up with the team MVP, a first team all conference, and the second in the scoring title for the conference. Now, I don't say those things in no bragging way whatsoever. Is just building the outline of failure and how you react to that failure. And that was my first lesson in it, and that was my first lesson in really, really wanting something and figuring out how to get it and how to dedicate every ounce of my being to making that happen. And so that was a huge, huge turning moment in my life and my attitude towards failure. After that, luckily I graduated, and we went out to, I got a pilot training slot, so I got awarded a pilot slot in the Air Force. And we went out to Del Rio, Texas. Kristen came with me, and went to pilot training in Del Rio, which was an awesome time, a lot of fun. But yet again, the trend continues. I was met with a pretty tough time. It was, I thought I was going to show up and just, you sit down and fly an airplane. Like, how hard could that be? I can do that. That's easy. And yeah, there was flying, but there was also a lot of academic testing in there as well. And there was a whole bunch of stuff I was probably wholly unprepared for. And I didn't know what a pneumatic system was. I was a psychology major. So pneumatics, hydraulics, how all that stuff worked was pretty foreign to me. And I found myself in the fun place of the first 2 academic tests I took, I failed those tests. And they came up to me and said, hey, buddy, you fail one more academic test in your whole time, your whole year at pilot training, you're gone. That's it. And I was like, wait, what? This is all I'd wanted to do. I wanted to be a pilot so desperately. And to think, man, I am one mess up away from losing this whole thing. Ruining my career, my future, all the things plans that I had with Kristen, all the things that we wanted to do. And that was another eye-opener. And so I was able to double down on the things that I'd learned from my time at soccer, but I also had a friend there, Teddy was a real sharp pilot, a great human, and he knew what he was doing. And he picked me up by the scruff of the neck, and he pulled me through the whole thing. He helped me study for every single test. He sat with me going over things, rehearsing it, going through emergency procedures. I mean, that guy was with me. He was my shadow, and he was there to pull me through it. And that lesson there, I knew how to deal with failure. I knew how to put in the hard work. That was my lesson in sometimes you can't do it yourself, and you need someone there to pick you up and pull you through along the way. And that was just another huge thing. And so from there, luckily I didn't fail any more tests after that, which was really nice. I tracked into the heavy track, the transport track. I graduated in the top 3 in my class there and got my first pick of what I wanted. So Kristen and I went out to New Jersey and flew the KC-10, which was air-to-air refueling. I think there's a picture of that up there. That picture Kristen actually took from the other plane that was above it as we pulled in right below it. So that picture is probably at 29,000 feet as she took that of me, which was pretty cool. So we spent time there in New Jersey, out on the West Coast as well. 12 years I spent in the Air Force, and 8 deployments? 8 deployments over 12 years. Some places, Africa, Southeast Asia, spent some time in Afghanistan and did that whole thing. And that was another huge lesson in just learning how to spend time away from your family and stay connected. Those were trying times, but I think Kristen would agree that we grew together through that whole thing, and we formed this bond that was there, that prepared us for what was about to come, which was, those years were tough, but I honestly wouldn't trade them for anything. They're the definition of who we are now, so it was really cool. So after I spent 12 years in the Air Force, about 2019 I got out. I got hired with UPS and flew there for a while. And finally back home in California after living in New Jersey, in the Bay Area, and Germany. And we came back home, and it was so nice to be back at the ocean. And as a paddler and a surfer, I surfed as much as I could when I was back home, which was great. And then I fell in love with prone paddling. I started training for a trip to Indonesia, and in that process I said I was going to show up fit and ready to go for Indonesia, and so I said prone paddling was the way to go, and I just fell in love with the sport, the activity, and the community. And I actually see a bunch of the prone people here right now, which is awesome. It's a great community. And so as I started paddling, and after that Indo trip, I decided, you know what, I think I want to do a channel crossing. And it was a huge goal. It was kind of a wild thing to think, I'm going to get on a board and I'm going to go to Catalina and I'm going to paddle from Catalina to Newport Beach. But it was a goal that I wanted. I saw that island and just said, I got to do this. I got to cross this. So again, set some goals, started working hard at it, and found myself with the Bend and Go, which is, for those of you who don't know, Bend and Go is a channel crossing, a paddle, prone paddle only, arms only, no paddles or anything like that. And it's in honor of Ben Carlson, who gave his life in service of others, I guess almost 11, 12 years ago now, as a lifeguard here in Newport Beach. And so it's a wonderful event that really brings community together, and it really has a bunch of people who are like-minded that want to do a kind of stupidly difficult thing. But they bring all together, and we raise money for the Ben Carlson Foundation and Scholarship, which goes out. And it's just it's an amazing event of just wonderful humans that I've met, just some fantastic people through that process. And we had a shared suffering together, and we learned a whole lot about who we are as people, and we learned what sacrifice and commitment makes and means. And it's a beautiful thing, and I love that organization. I could talk about them all day, but I did that crossing September 14th of 2025. And it was a huge accomplishment. I remember coming across the beach and seeing Kristen there and just being overwhelmed with emotion that I'd done it. And it was an amazing feeling. And that kind of brings us up to speed. 2 weeks after that, all the fun started. So on September 28th, I went out. There was a hurricane swell that was coming through, and me and my buddy Dan, I don't know if Dan's here, no? Anyways, Dan and I went out for a surf down at DMJ's. It's a spot down in South Count Pendleton. And we went out there, we meet up. He lives in San Diego, so we met up for a surf. We'd meet up once a month or something like that. We'd been friends since 3rd grade and done everything together. And so we went down to DMJ's for a surf, and we're having a great time, getting some fun waves. And there was a pair of kids that were kind of surfing the peak near us that were kind of, back and forth with a little bit. We were pushing them a little deeper so we could get some better waves, and they were kind of going back and forth, but very amicable. We never really talked to them, just kind of acknowledged their existence there. And I remember there was an incident where I'd gotten a wave, I was paddling back out through the whitewash. I watched Dan take a wave when it closes out on him, and Dan's sitting kind of in the impact zone, and his board's bobbing, he grabs it, and he picks it up, and he looks, and there's another wave coming, and one of those 2 groms was out in the water, and you could tell he's eyeing that wave, and he's going to turn and go. And the math was pretty clear that if he went and didn't make it, that guy was going to run right into Dan. It was going to be that pretty close call. And sure enough, he puts his chin down and just boom, puts it over the edge and goes, pulls in, gets barreled, and closes out on him. And I'm like, oh God, here it comes. And for those of you that don't know Dan, Dan's not one to be trifled with. Dan's not a guy that you look at and say, yeah, I think I'll win that fight. You turn around and walk the other way when you see him. He's a Navy, former special ops, tattoos, tough-looking character, but just the biggest heart. And so sure enough, this kid and Dan come right next to each other. They kind of come up next to each other, and I go, oh God, here it goes. Dan's gonna light this guy up. And before I know it, the kid comes up and says, oh man, I'm really sorry. And I'm waiting for it. And Dan just goes, dude, that was awesome. That was so cool. Don't you dare apologize. I've been watching you guys all day. You guys have been sending it. That was so epic. Don't ever apologize for charging. That's fine. We're all good. And I swear that interaction right there, that moment, that smile, Dan's choice to choose kindness and generosity and forgiveness, I truly believe in my heart is what saved my life later on. So as we go on, we go back out to the back, the kids are there, we start talking with them, Thomas and Judah, and get their names and start just kind of chatting with them a bit. And we're talking about the waves and which ones are the good ones. And it was maybe the best 20 minutes of surf I can remember ever having. I mean, we just met 2 strangers. We're out there just having an absolute blast. We're trading waves. Waves are coming in. And I'm like, it's my turn, but you guys take this one. That's a good one, right? And it was just it was what surfing was meant to be. It was just pure stoke, pure aloha, pure like just fun. There was no competing, everyone was sharing. We were hooting and hollering for each other on different waves. I mean, it was as good as it gets. It was really what I wish it was like every time. And I remember a set came in and Judah went on the first one, next one comes, I'm like, well, all right, I'll take this one. And it sets up on the outside, kind of turn, and then it hits the inside sandbar, and it just starts throwing. And I'm sitting there going, all right, here we go. I tuck in, and I'm in the barrel of the day, and I'm just so excited. I can remember, I can picture it right now, the vision, looking out of this wave, just like staring at the exit, going, here we go, like, I'm gonna come out of the best barrel of the day. I am so pumped. And there was no doubt, like, I'm making this one. And the next thing I know, just kind of got lifted up on the back, and I was pitched over head first and pile drive straight down into the sand, and felt a bit of a crunch. I had no time to get my hands out, just, whoa, what was that? And I'm underwater, and I'm like, okay, well, let's just do a little body assessment. And as I do that, I go, his arm's not moving, that's kind of weird. So maybe it's just a little stinger, I'll try the other one. That's not moving. And I go, oh, shoot, like, I knew what I did. And the realization came to me like that. Like, dude, you broke your neck, you're paralyzed, you're face down in the water, you're gonna die. That's it. Like, there's no way out of it. It was a tough moment to like take that in and understand that there's now a clock running, and every second that goes by is closer to me dying. I was sure it was going to happen. I remember just telling myself through that whole thing, like, all right, the only thing you can do is stay calm. Like, that is it. You were powerless to fix this situation, but you just have to stay calm. And if you stay calm, maybe something will happen. Maybe a wave will come and flip you over. Maybe you'll get pushed in on your elbows and you'll get a breath, and who knows what's going to happen, but you just have to relax and buy yourself as much time as you can. So I was held under for the first wave, just waiting. Second wave hits me, I'm still underwater, and at that point, you know, things are getting bad, and all I could picture was my wife. That's all I could picture at that moment was her face, all the stuff we'd been through, and just this feeling of how much I loved her. And I just kept thinking about that phone call that she was going to get that was just going to break her in half. And I couldn't have it. I refused to let that happen. And I just kept praying and hoping, and third wave hit me, and I'm still underwater, and I'm going, oh no, it's getting bad, and the lights are starting to fade out, things are getting dark, getting the involuntary spasms, and the water starts coming in, and I'm like, well, sucks, but, you know, it's been good. And the last thing I notice is just feels like something here touches me. God, that's really weird, and then I don't remember anything. And unbeknownst to me, those two guys that we've been surfing with, Judah and Thomas, Judah had gone on the first wave and he was paddling back out. And as he's paddling back out, he watches me on this wave getting barreled, and he's hooting and hollering with excitement because of this bond that we'd formed out in the water, because of a smile from Dan that started it all, that started this camaraderie. And he's hooting and hollering, watching me on this wave, ready to tell me, man, that was really insane. That was a great wave. And as he's paddling back out, he doesn't see me fall, but he paddles over the wave and is looking back to tell me this. And he just sees my board floating. He's like, that's kind of weird. All right, kind of keeps paddling a bit. And then he looks back and he's like, it's weird, he's still not up. Like, maybe he's just a little confused, or, you know, hit an eardrum or something like that. And then he sees for a second my shoulders come up and back down. And at that moment he goes, oh, something's really wrong. And he sprint paddled over and gets to where I am. He could see my board, but it's sand in the water everywhere. He can't see anything, and he's in the water searching around. And what I felt before I blacked out was him finding me and him touching my wetsuit and grabbing me. And unbeknownst to me, he had grabbed me, put me under the arms, and was able to stand up and pull me out of the water and started immediately screaming for help. Screaming as loud as he can. So loud he told me afterwards he thought he was going to burst my eardrums. He was worried about my safety, how loud he was yelling. And, you know, it's probably 4 or 5 feet of water at that point with steady hurricane swell waves that are just relentless coming back and forth. And he gets me into the arms and starts pulling me back. And, you know, it's a super dangerous situation. Both of our boards are attached, so as he's doing this, he's telling me the boards keep coming with every wave, and he's having to push those out of the way while hold me and drag me all the way to the shore, which I don't know how he found the energy or the ability to do all that. It's still, when I think about it, it just blows my mind. And so he pulls me to shore. He yells for Thomas. Thomas yells for Dan, and they get in, and they wind up all 3 of them at the beach together after Judas pulled me all the way to the shore. I get to the shore, and the first thing I do is my eyes open, and I realize, like, oh my God, like, I'm alive. And that moment, like, I love that moment. It's so good. I go back to it. It's just a fun, amazing thing to, like, open your eyes and realize, like, it's not over. And to go from the juxtaposition of, that's it, it's done, to, I get another shot at this. That first breath, that first bit of light in my eyes it just felt so amazing. And I look up, and there's all these heads above me staring over, and I'm like, okay, I'm here, I made it. Who pulled me out of the water? And all the heads kind of look around, and out from behind pokes this head, and I recognize him, like, oh, you're the kid. Like, I recognized who he was, and I just looked him straight in the eye and said, you saved my life. Like, I was dead without you. And it was amazing, and I really do all attribute that to the initial interaction with Dan and his willingness to meet a situation that he had every right to be upset with grace and gratitude and a smile. And I know that's what got me there to the beach. So from there, things happened pretty quick. I was brought, they got the lifeguard's attention, who came over, put me on a neck board. They were able to stabilize me there, get me in the back of the lifeguard truck. That drove up to the parking lot where there was an ambulance already waiting, put me in an ambulance. Ambulance drove off to a helicopter that was waiting there. Helicopter got me all the way over to Scripps La Jolla Memorial, and I think we said it was 45 minutes from the moment of my injury to me being in a hospital. So I see some first responders back there. You guys are rock, man. Thank you guys for what you do, because yeah, there we go. It's just miraculous how fast and smoothly that happened. It was insane. So they get me to Scripps, and you know, that was a whirlwind. Spent a lot of time on the stretcher just staring at the ceiling, and you know, the first thing I got, luckily Kristen showed up early. Dan made the phone call to Chris and got her there, and when she showed up, she just came over and just gave me a kiss on the cheek, and there was just that moment just calmed me down, set me in motion, and it was like, it's going to be okay. We're going to be fine. And I remember them putting me in an MRI, and that was the first moment since then that I really had a moment that was just myself. I mean, MRIs aren't super relaxing, but it was kind of nice to be in there, and it was just me. And I remember sitting in that MRI, and I go back to this moment all the time in my life, that I knew, okay, dude, like, you're toast. Like, you broke your neck, you're paralyzed, and I made peace with myself in that moment that I may never walk again. And I was okay with that. And I said, you know what, that's fine. Because I remember blacking out underwater, and I know what I was up against. And to say, I get to sit here and breathe, even if it means I can't move, I'll take that deal 10 out of 10 times. Every single time. And so that MRI moment, I mean, I shed some tears in there, and they were all happy ones. They were this hunger and appreciation and joy for the fact that I get to be here and I get to be alive. And the fact that I had broken my neck and was paralyzed was completely inconsequential to me. So we had a wonderful doctor who was there, and he performed a surgery where they fused my spine, C6 and 7 vertebrae. Those were the two that were broken, that were impacting my spine. And luckily for me, that was an incomplete injury, meaning the spinal column itself was not severed. It's just that the bones had broken and that they had impacted it and kind of shut off some of the signaling to it. So when he did the spinal fusion and put a spacer between those, he was able to relieve some of the pressure on the spine and some of the bruising. And I woke up from the surgery and he let me know, like, hey man, like, surgery went well, everything went as good as we could hope. You know, you are now an incomplete quadriplegic. Like, that's what you are. Meaning your spinal column is still sort of intact, but all 4 limbs are paralyzed and are gonna suffer paralysis. And I was like, okay, that's great. I was like, that's fine. I'm alive. We're good. Yes. Okay. You're good. I was like, okay. And really, from that moment on, that started my recovery. From coming out of that surgery, that started my recovery process, and I was ready for it. I think everything that I had gone through in my life, with sports, with flying, with the military, with paddling, all of those things came together in this beautiful way that had me so ready to tackle what was in front of me. I didn't know what the future would be. I didn't know what it would look like, but I knew I was ready to take care of whatever it was. So I genuinely believe that my life through sports and that stuff prepared me for what was on the way. So the things, we can go through all of them, but the things I learned and the things that set me up for that are realizing that for me, recovery was an endurance sport. Like, I figured that out very quickly, is that this is not a one and done thing. There's no pill, there's no quick fix, is that this is an endurance endeavor. And in any endurance endeavor that I've dealt with, your mind is probably more important than your body, right? Everyone's physically capable of doing a lot of things, but when it gets hard, are you able to put your mind in the place that digs through some pretty deep, dark stuff and just keeps pushing on? And my paddle from the bend to go, like, that set me up. I remember laying in that bed going, okay, I gotta do 7 to 8 hours of work every day to try and get a finger to move. And I was like, all right, I've done that. I've sat there and suffered. I've like joyfully suffered on a paddleboard for 8 hours and loved it. And I'm like, I can do this. Like, I'm ready to take this on. If it means 8 hours a day of paddling and 8 hours a day of trying to move a finger, I can do that. And I was ready to take on that suffering, and I don't mean suffering like in a bad way. I mean it in like an endurance way, and like, I'm ready to do the things that need to get done, and I'm ready to push myself. And I took on this mindset of, I get to do these things, not I have to do these things. When the physical therapist would come in, it was not, I have to do this. It's like, okay, I get to learn how to do this. And I remember that was a big turning point for me, and it was really fun to like reframe how I looked at problems and things as opportunities rather than setbacks. And so I had to learn everything again, bit by bit. I mean, I had to learn how to feed myself. I had to learn how to breathing was hard at first. I had to learn how to move a finger. Had to learn how to use the bathroom, right? That didn't come for a long time. Like things that we all take for granted, I had to figure it out step by step. And I think my life in sports and my life in endurance sports set me up to be able to take that on, which was just like a really big blessing. The next thing that was really important for me as well, and it was a mantra that I repeated to myself the entire time, is just effort and attitude. Effort and attitude. And I just kept saying to myself, like, those are your only two controllables in life, is how much effort you put out and what attitude you approach things with. And I promised myself that I'd show up and give 100% for everything I did, and I'd show up with a smile on my face and make light of it and have fun. And I remember coming out of surgery making paralyzed jokes as soon as I was out. That's like, I got a lot of groans, but I was like, well, hey, I'm the only person that can really make these jokes, so it's kind of a fun group to finally be in, I guess. But yeah, it was, and that goes back to sports as well, and I think that goes back to my soccer days early of learning to be coachable, and I think effort and attitude goes into that, and I got that a lot in soccer. Is God, he's a coachable player. It's really nice, and I was like, I always hated that. I was like, that's the best you can say about me as a soccer player? Is like coachable? Like, no, you're saying that guy is incredible. He's fast. He's good, and I'm coachable. I'm the coachable guy. Like, all right, cool. But it wasn't until I got out there and started coaching my daughter's teams in soccer, I realized, oh, that's what coachable is. That's what that means. Like, that kid shows up and she puts out the effort. That kid shows up with a good attitude. That kid is humble and ready to learn and willing to be wrong and willing to be curious. And effort and attitude was just this mantra that I just kept saying over and over and over in my head. And every day I showed up ready to tackle whatever it was. And my physical therapist, I was very fortunate. I was sent to a hospital in Colorado called Craig Hospital. That's a very spinal specific hospital. Half of it is spinal injuries, 50 beds for spinal, 50 beds for TBIs, for traumatic brain injuries. And that's what they do, and they are dialed on it. They are experts in this world. And I was lucky enough to get paired up with a physical therapist, Sarah, who was a former collegiate athlete, and she saw me day one, and she's like, oh, we get each other. I'm like, yeah, we're good. And she just started throwing things at me from the first day, and she was like, all right, here we go. I'm gonna push you as hard as I can. And I'm like, you push harder than that, let's go. And it was really amazing to have someone that really wanted to see what I was capable of, and myself be willing to do it. So I'm forever grateful for Sarah. So that kind of leads to the next one of failure. And there's some good pictures up here of failure. I failed a lot, and I learned to embrace failure. And as I kind of alluded to with my background with soccer and with pilot training, I'm no stranger to failure now. And for me, I've been able to restructure it, and I am so grateful for those things that I failed at, because I learned so much from them. And I include pilot training in like the sports world, because I do feel like it's a athletic endeavor in a lot of ways. And the failure stuff, I read a quote once that's really stuck with me for my whole life. It says, the purpose of life is to be constantly defeated by greater and greater things. And that has always stuck with me. And I think for anyone here that's a lifelong athlete or has committed themselves at some point to being good at their craft, and whatever it is, that's it, is you find a challenge and you suck at it at first and it beats you, and you're like, I want to learn to do this, and nobody shows up good at it at first. Everyone sucks at it. And that's fine. And you learn that skill in soccer, whatever it was. I wanted to learn to do this scissor, or I wanted to do whatever. I would set my goal, and I'd be terrible at it, and I'd get there, and then it's like, all right, well, that thing beat me, but now I got it. What's the next big thing that can beat me? And I'd go after that. And you'd learn bit by bit that failure was just a chance for opportunity to grow. And I think once I embraced that early on in my life, it really shaped everything I did. And these days, failure is still everywhere in my life. I mean, I live a very fulfilling life. I love it. When I go to physical therapy these days, I show up and I do a round of lunges or I do something, and every single time, my first round is garbage. It's terrible. The physical therapist is looking at me like, buddy, are you okay? Like, what is happening here? Just give me a second. So I do the first round, I fail at it, but I learn, and I put all that stuff in my head, and I say, okay, this is what I sucked at, this is why I sucked at it. All right, let's try the next round. The next round gets a little better, and by the third round, I'm moving through it with ease. And I've taken that failure and I've decided that it's an opportunity for learning, it's an opportunity for growth. It's not a setback. And for me, when I reframe that in my mind, that failure is an opportunity, it opened my world up to try anything. And there was nothing that I was scared to take on because it didn't matter if I failed at it. I could stick with it and I could get there. I would also add, there's probably another slide on here, but I would use the word yet a lot. And I'd be sitting there and I'd say, hey, I can't walk. And I just put the word yet at the end of it. And it changed my mindset from a thing of, I can't do this, to a thing that put future promise into, I'm going to do this. And that word has really stuck with me for a long time. It reframed everything I did. And there would be a lot of people that when I was at Craig, and they said, oh, I can't walk, I can't use my thumbs, I can't do this. And I just always say yet. And they'd look at me and I was like, you can't do it yet, dude. Like, you're gonna get there. And I would put that to myself as well. And little by little, I'd chip away at those things, and those things I couldn't do became things that I was all of a sudden doing. That was a pretty powerful lesson for me to learn. The other thing that I learned too, I think was very much relying on your team. That's a thing that I'd learned through sports. I'd learned it through pilot training, obviously. My friend Teddy that pulled me through. I realized, like, life is a team sport. Life is not an individual thing. And I think I'd been such a capable human for so long. I was able to do whatever I wanted on my own all the time. And I'd kind of gotten used to that. And I think I'd kind of forgotten about life being a team sport. Not in a selfish way, just in I'm a capable man, I could do stuff, right? And you find yourself paralyzed, and you find yourself, on your back in a hospital bed, and you realize, like, oh, I need help. And that was in the form of letting Kristen brush my teeth, as much as I hated it, because you were terrible at it. But I let her do it. My daughter would feed me. She was the one sitting there feeding me food, taking help from friends and neighbors that showed up and said, what can we do? Like, they were there helping Kristen. They said, you need the lawn taken care of? Done. Lawn's taken care of. You need someone to walk the dog? Done. That's taken care of. You need meals delivered? Done. Meals were delivered. My mom, my goodness, Mom, like, you were quietly the cement behind that held this whole thing together. Just very quietly, not asking for anything, just doing over and over, showing up and doing. And there's just all things that it was tough for me as a very capable, independent person to let that go and realize, hey, this is a team sport. Let your teammates do their thing and trust them, and know that just like in soccer, I do my thing, they do their thing. If I trust them, they're going to put that ball in the center so I can finish it. Or flying, hey, there's a wingman next to me. I'm going to trust that he's going to be in the spot that he needs to be, so that when we come up for air refueling, he ain't going to hit me, right? We're just going to touch, and we're going to do things the right way. And I put my faith in that dude at 29,000 feet at 300 miles an hour, that he's going to do it right. And you go, okay. And that was a huge part in my recovery. Another part of it was just the massive amount of love I felt through that. And I think that was a side effect of the whole thing, is just realizing how many people out there cared about me, cared about our family, and just showered us with love. It was truly a really special thing to feel through the whole process. I felt like, all this sunshine is around you, and that sunshine is love. And this felt like a magnifying glass, just like pointed right at you, with the number of people that outreached to see how I was doing, to take care of my family, to show up. It was a truly special thing that I don't wish this on anyone, but God, I wish everyone could feel that just once in their life, because it's a really amazing thing to know that none of us are alone. Every single person here has a huge network of people that they can call that would be there in the drop of the hat for them. Close friends, extended friends. It was a really humbling thing to realize how many people are there when you need them. And the last thing was alluded to up here is I learned that really helped me through the whole thing was just learning to cheer on my teammates. And we got a couple pictures up here. We've got my buddy Jake and Charlos and Dakota. And all four of us found ourselves in pretty similar positions. And, Charlos is, he's a neighbor of ours actually from Capo Beach who was hit by a drunk driver. And we found ourselves 15 houses away as neighbors. We found ourselves at Craig at the same exact time, which was just amazing, going through the same things together. But through the process of learning to celebrate my teammates' accomplishments and my, fellow, airmen and other people's accomplishments through the Air Force, this was the same thing. And I would do things when I was at Craig. I remember the first steps I took. I remember the first time I walked solo on my own. They were all cool things, and I was like, all right, cool, what's next? I was happy. Don't get me wrong, I was happy, but I was like, that's cool. I can remember the first time I watched Jake walk, and it brought me to tears. The first time I saw Dakota get in the water, again, an excellent surfer from Hawaii who was hit by a car and had that taken away from him, watching him get back in the water. Watching my teammates succeed reflected the work that I had put in, and it made it all the sweeter to watch them get to do that. And learning to cheer on your teammates and learning to be happy for those around you and the accomplishments that they have and that they succeed at in life, it felt a lot sweeter than my own accomplishments, because I just expected myself to do things, and watching them get to do it, I knew the effort that they put in. I knew how freaking hard it was, what they were doing. And other people were happy for them, but other people didn't get what they went through. And to have those people in your life that cheer you on, and to be one of those people that cheer those people on, I think is just, I think it's a special thing. I think it's a privilege to have that. And so those are still people I'm in contact with all the time, texting, calling. One of the guys not pictured, Kevin, and I are planning on going on a backpacking trip in the Sierras in a little while. These are people that mean a lot to me, and that were there through thick and thin. So now, I guess, kind of to bring us to the now, what does my life look like now? It's awesome. Life's great. I mean, I can truly say that. I'm back home in our house, which is a lot of stairs and a lot of work, but it's just a wonderful thing to be back home with my family. Getting to spend time with my kids again. We just got back from a long camping trip in Montana, Wyoming, a long road trip with my kid, Willem, and my nephew Tommy here, just the three of us, which was insane. It was fun. And probably one of the coolest things out of this whole thing was growing our family in a way. And we were lucky enough to have the ability to build out some of our house and build a couple extra rooms in our house through the garage and some crawl space that we had. And we were able to have Judah move in with us. He had some tough, unfortunate events in his life, and we were able to be a solution for him. And Judah and his younger sister Layla now live with us. They're part of our family. And it's just been the biggest blessing in the world to have this thing kind of come full circle and to have them with us every day. They were with us on this last vacation. They came out to Montana with us and met some friends. They're there every day for breakfast. They're there for dinner. They're 100% family now, and it's just been the biggest blessing to have them around. It's been really cool. So, a few of the pictures up there. On this side over here, we've got Pat and Judah, and that's the first day I went out for a surf. It was back in March, and the two of them took me out to Doheny on what had to be about that big, I think, that day. But when you're laying down, that's about head high. I mean, I got a big head, so maybe it was nose high, I'm not sure. But we went out and we had a blast. I still remember that first wave. Quinn was out there, Willem, Kristen, Pat, Judah. I remember the first wave I got. They had to help me down to the beach. I could hardly walk. I could hardly put my wetsuit on. But they brought me down there, and it opened my eyes, and it changed my life to know that I'm going to get to interact with the ocean again. Like, the ocean will be a part of my life again, because there was always a question of, like, am I going to be healthy enough to do that? After that, I was like, all right, well, let's try something stupid. So I decided to go out and paddle the Loop, which is a race down in Coronado, which is you start on one end of Coronado Island, go around the tip by Point Loma, and end out basically where you started. It's an 11-mile paddle race. I'd done it the year before, and I said, well, I'm pretty dumb. I'd probably try that again. So I went out and did it, and it took me a whole lot longer than last time, but I put my head down, and I again happily suffered through that 11 miles, and came in feeling pretty accomplished and pretty destroyed, but really happy. And so then my wife Kristen and I out there doing some boogie boarding at T Street, but it's a fulfilling life, and it's not a life I ever think about of having a disability. It's a life that I constantly go back to that MRI and constantly think, dude, you're here, like, you get to do this. And I just feel so privileged all the time. So I still have goals. I still want to do more stupid things, like going on this backpacking trip in a while. I want to do the Bend 12.0 next year. I'm not going to make it this year, but next year, that's my goal, is put my head down and do another crossing if I can. So, just to kind of wrap things up, I'm a firm believer that things just happen in life, and I've never felt that this happened to me. I've always felt that this just happened, and how you react to things is what happens to you. Like, you're in charge of that. And I've kind of tried to keep that mentality through this whole thing of nothing. People I've talked to at Craig would say, oh, this happened to me. And I'd watch them, and they didn't progress because they were holding on to something that wasn't healthy. And once you realize, like, dude, you're in the situation you're in, you can't change it. It sucks. We were all inches away from this not happening, but the flip side is we were all inches away from dying. And we are all in the situation we are now, and we get to choose how to react to these things. And I bring that up to my kids all the time. I think it's an important thing. And I genuinely believe that a life of sports and athletic endeavors and chasing endurance things, and my time in the military prepared me for what was to come. And I genuinely believe, as this being tackling sports, that we're focusing on sometimes the wrong things in sports. And none of the trophies I won, none of the accolades I won, none of it helped me in my recovery. Not once did I get to hold up an MVP trophy and I just got to walk. It didn't matter. None of that stuff mattered. What mattered were the things that sports taught me, the process of setting goals, the process of failing, the process of being a teammate, the process of failing and choosing to respond to it. And I think that's what we sometimes miss in sports, is that that's what I want my kids to know. That's what I want their teammates to know is, yeah, we want to be a good team. We want to win. Everyone should want to win, because that is all of those things put into motion. That is the dedication. That's the goal setting. That's the suffering. That's the teammates. That's the failure. Those character traits are what sports are meant to do, and that's what the focus is. And we're trying to raise good humans and not necessarily winners all the time. And so I think that little bit of a restructure in what we're looking at in sports can be a huge mindset shift for everybody. So yeah, that wraps up most of what I kind of wanted to talk about today. I would really like to have my wife Kristen come up